Ladies and gentlemen, 2019 BMW X5 xDrive 40i. My buddy Bryce got this used for $42,000 with $35,000 on the clock, which is the exact same price I paid for my brand new 2023 Mazda CX-50 about a year and a half ago. And he's telling me I gotta get rid of that and get something like this. Now, he has done a few choice modifications. He told me China to dress it up a little bit. But the thing that you actually care about, he did the JB4 Piggyback Tune Stage 2, which adds about an extra 4-ish pounds of boost. And this is, of course, the legendary B58 Inline 6 that's turbocharged, 3-liter magnificent engine for multiple reasons: fuel efficiency, power delivery, and it's mated to, of course, ZF 8-speed. Which I'll tell you today if, in this application, it also gets the job done. These are the stock run-flat tires the vehicle came with, but this 40i has just about every option checked. And get into the interior, you're gonna notice that it's a really nice place to be. These upgraded seats that are, this quilted leather, and they're massaging and heated and cooled. It's a really nice interior. The executive package, which gives you this crystal dildo, is what he calls it. To start, we can say this interior is definitely a few notches above something like my Mazda CX-50. Nice materials. It has all the options, even heated and cooled cup holders. How bougie is that? He also added a cold air intake, even though it's kind of like a hot air intake based on the positioning and such, but that's more for the noise than anything else. As you can see, there's a car seat back here. Bryce is a family man. And we also have air suspension optioned here, but while we're driving, we can't really mess around with the height manually. That's only at very low speeds. We are going to be playing around with the different settings: comfort, sport, etc. Dude, refined, quiet, comfortable. We're starting off in comfort mode. And I'm just cruising around, being a mature adult, hauling my family around. And then I can press the sport button, and we're gonna go into individual, which has the most aggressive everything: steering, suspension, throttle, and shift logic. Also turn off the traction. There we go. Put this into manual mode. Well, first things, you can notice quite a big difference between the way the car feels from comfort to sport. I love when cars have multiple personalities and those different settings actually do something, which isn't always the case. Dude, for a 5,000 plus pound SUV, this thing drives great. I have taken to the canyons in my CX-50, which definitely does not drive this well. Great body control. Again, 5,000 plus pound SUV. What the hell? Now, as we've talked about in a previous video where we compared all the M5 and all the M3 generations, we actually have a whole playlist of that right up here. BMW in recent years has gone modern and digital. So there's modern versus old school, and then analog versus digital. And this final era is now modern and digital. So that means the steering, although in sport is artificially weighted, there's nothing there. It's dead. Which, again, this is an SUV, so what do you expect? But unfortunately, that kind of behavior seems common throughout the BMW range at this point. Woohoo! Super fast shifts. ZF8, it's a slush box, but the way they've tuned that, I mean, ZF making a great product and then BMW mating it beautifully with their B58. Really minimal turbo lag. And you get that mid-range torque too. You don't even have to ring it out, which is good, because for an SUV, you don't want to have to always ring it out when you need to overtake and get on the throttle. Oh, I just got torque everywhere. Now I hear that the Cayenne drives even better, but the price premium you're paying, I don't know if it's really worth that. Because this thing already drives, I mean, I'd love to compare the two, but this thing already drives stupidly well for an SUV. Oh, getting a little tire squeal. These are not the highest grip tires. Now back there with the tire squeal, we were getting some understeer. Again, these tires are the stock, the OEM run flats, but even earlier we got a little bit of wiggle from the rear, thanks to that rear-wheel drive based all-wheel drive system. Let's go back to comfort. We're now back in comfort, and the engine with this tune, you don't need an SUV that's this fast, but it is very much amusing. But keep in mind, there is a slight trade-off. You are going to get a little bit more turbo lag. The B58 already has very, very little. It's so well dialed in, so well tuned. But with the added boost and the added power, you do get a little bit, but not to the point that it would bother you, especially in a vehicle like this, an SUV. I'm just so amused that an SUV can drive like this when it's so fat. And I love the multiple personality nature of it. Now, if I had to nitpick the driving dynamics, again, this is an SUV, so I feel kind of silly even nitpicking the driving dynamics on a Canyon, you know, on a Canyon review, because this is already handling it much better than I would expect. But the brakes, when I'm in sport mode, everything feels pretty tight, pretty solid. And the brakes are kind of like what you'd expect for an SUV, which this feels like a really sporty SUV. So it almost feels like everything else is a little bit more hardcore than you'd expect, except for the brakes, where they have that, you know, not too aggressive bite. It's, you know, not very firm, which is congruent when you're in comfort mode. But then when you're driving it harder and in sport mode, it doesn't fit everything else as well. But again, I feel kind of stupid saying this because it is, of course, a SUV, and most of the time people are going to be driving it like normal people, not trying to bomb the Canyons in their 5,000 plus pound SUV. You know what, in comfort, the shifts actually are slower. I guess it depends on how hard you're pushing the engine, but BMW's doing that same sneaky thing that I noticed in some Genesis vehicles, where the graphic will actually be ahead of what the engine is doing. So when you downshift, you can hear the engine. Let me show you, higher RPM. So on certain shifts, you'll notice a slight gap between what the graphic is showing with the RPM versus the engine note. But the reason they do that is that it gives you the impression that it's faster, right? Yeah, so we're still in comfort. Then we're going to go back to sport. All right, so getting this versus the CX-50. The the main thing that's on my mind is the ownership cost long-term, right? So I don't want to have to worry about expensive repairs and various issues. I probably wouldn't option air suspension myself just because of that reason. But at $42,000, this is such a stupid good value. I mean, of course, BMWs tend to depreciate quite aggressively. MSRP for this car is a lot higher than my CX-50, but the reliability of the engine I'm not so worried about. I'm worried about other things like air suspension, and I'd have to do more research to see what else tends to be problematic in the X5s. But the way this thing drives, the interior quality, the capacity to tow, the space, the dimensions, like, it's very much what I would enjoy. It's very much what I'm looking for. And there's a reason why people say this is the thing to get. You don't need to consider other options. The Audi Q7, the GLE, they just don't drive anywhere near as well as the X5. The X5 is the leader in its segment. And it's more comfortable than my CX-50 too. So the CX-50, it has a harsher ride to then give you a sportier feel. It's a much lighter vehicle too. That's in the 4,200 pound range. This is about 1,000 pounds more, but still, they've tuned this in a way, and it has the adaptive dampers. Again, higher price point, so we're comparing apples to oranges here, but it can do the comfortable and sporty better. It can be more comfortable and it can be more sporty, whereas the CX-50 is like in this middle ground, and of course it doesn't have adaptive dampers. Again, price point. But these are all just considerations for my next SUV. My friends, let me know what you think. Should I get the X5 over the CX-50, or am I going to regret it? Leave a comment down below. If you want your car reviewed, visit us on jabalandcars.com. Fill out the form on the homepage. Much love, my friends, and I'll see you all in the next one.